Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, January 16th, 2025. This is a live stream number 1142. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby. So tonight, we are going to continue my series, Let's Build a Fantasy Role-Playing Game, and we are going to be discussing combat. But of course, that'll be after we tackle the news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live show, that does mean that there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you happen to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes, yes, I know 10 minutes is an awfully long time to some people these days. But if you happen to be a subscriber for longer than 10 minutes, you can take part in chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Keithulu. Our good friend, the Madman, is with us, as is Wallona's Cave, Bradley Thorpe, Gleeman RX, Semper Buffo, Kevin R. Smith, and Mike is here, Sean O'Donnell, as well as Game Cat. So our chat is off and rocking already. I would also take a guess that the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D, one of our chat moderators, might just well be lurking in the shadows with her glittery banhammer. That is a possibility. So howdy, everybody. Welcome aboard. Man, kind of a sad day today. David Lynch passed away and Bob Uecker. I was a huge Bob Uecker fan. Even though I am not a Brewers fan, right? They're the enemy. The reality is the Brewers haven't been the enemy of the Cubs for that long. I mean, they were in the American League for quite some time. But, you know, it's funny because I actually read Bob Uecker's books and they were hysterical. I mean, I'm a huge baseball fan. It probably doesn't come across here on the show, but still, I saw David Lynch and I was like, oh, that sucks. And then I saw Bob Uecker. I was like, oh, man, this day's a real bummer. Bradley Thorpe is asking if I have reviewed the Avatar Legends role-playing core rulebook. No, I have not. I have not. I don't have really any relationship with Magpie. So the reality is I probably wouldn't be a great reviewer for it because, and I know we've talked about Avatar in the past. I've never watched it. I have absolutely no point of reference to it. And I know I've had folks say, hey, you know, Jeff, it's a pretty good anime. You know, it's not, you know, like One Piece. I don't know, another anime I haven't watched because I honestly, why would I want to get involved in 1,000 episodes or something like that? Zoinks! And then like every 10 episodes, it's like a recap episode. That's how animes usually work. So like, oh yeah, this is another filler episode. Okay. All right. So no, I have not. So Keith Ulu says, just a bit outside is the line. Keith Ulu said, just a bit inside. No, it's just a bit outside. So I heard this story. Now, I heard this story years ago. Well, okay, now 4 years ago, maybe. It's been a while. So it's not something that I ran across simply because Bob Uecker passed away. But I remember, maybe it's not that long ago. Regardless, it was Bob Costas and Bob Uecker talking. And they were talking about how Bob Uecker liked to prank people in the booth. So he'd be calling the game and, guests would come in. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that happens in a broadcast booth. People pass through, they, get to like wave at somebody or it gets to say hello to the broadcasters during a commercial break, what have you. And I guess what Costas used to do is he used to hit the cough button, which in broadcasting, it's to cut your mic. So if you had to cough or sneeze or something like that, you hit the cough button. So what he would do is he would be calling the game and then he would hit the cough button and keep talking and throw the people off who are in the booth. So he'd do something like, now batting Sam Smith, third baseman, he's hitting 261, hit the cough button, and he'd be like, this sorry son of a bitch. This fucking guy. And people would be like, what the? Is that's going out over on the air? What? So I thought that was kind of funny. I thought that was pretty funny. Rooster is with us in chat. Said Avatar is just a movie about sea monkeys. Kevin King is here. I don't think I said hello to Kevin. I think he's just popping on in as I was telling that story. And Dark Autumn Scribe is popping on in. Said they had to get past the Planet Fitness ad. Okay. I had nothing to do with that. Somebody must have been looking at, like gyms and that online. That's how it usually works with me. Although, weirdly enough, I get ads for stuff I already have. So, like, I have Surfshark, and I get Surfshark ads all the time. And it's like, well, I already have like 2.5 years subscription. I don't need anything else. Anyway, so yeah, a couple of famous people passed away today. And of course, as far as David Lynch, I liked David Lynch. I really liked his Dune. I thought his Dune was pretty good. I guess, the critics and everything hated it, but I thought it was all right. I thought it was pretty decent. Got to remember, this is back in a time where you didn't have a lot of science fiction out there. You didn't have much science fiction or fantasy. Oh my gosh, you had no fantasy floating around really out there. So you kind of took what you could get and be happy with it. Kind of like alms for the poor, right? Drippings for the poor. Like, oh, thank you. More, please, more. Little bit more Battlestar Galactica, please. Oh, Galactica 1980? No, don't want that. Get rid of that. All righty. Zraxaran is popping on into chat. Good to see you. So let's move on into the news. And I'm going to start off tonight. I mentioned this bundle last night. And I normally don't talk about comic books. But there is a smashing Humble bundle which is going on right now. And it features pretty much the entire published work of Terry Moore, who is actually one of my all-time favorite comic book creators. So let me tell you about this bundle: Tales of Love, Murder, and High-Tech Battlesuits. Discover some of comics' most indelible characters in the universe of Eisner Award-winning artist and writer Terry Moore. Get caught up in the lives of Kachu, Francine, and David in the complete run of the groundbreaking series Strangers in Paradise. Meet Julie, whose life changes forever when liquid metal rains from the sky in Echo. Unravel the mystery of a woman who wakes up in her own grave in Rachel Rising. Plus, your purchase will help support the Hero Initiative. Right now, you can get thousands of comic book pages. We're talking, I think, all in all, it's 22 or 25 graphic novels. The entire run of Strangers in Paradise, the entire run of Rachel Rising, the entire run of Echo, the entire run of Strangers in Paradise 25, the entire run of Strangers in Paradise 5 years, and the entire run of Serial. All for $20. So the reality is, I mean, I mentioned this last night. I'll go into a little bit more detail, not a ton, but I figured, hey, you know what? If I share this and I can turn one person out there onto Strangers in Paradise, then I can sleep well. So when I lived out in, I was going to say New Mexico, but no, it was actually when I lived out in Arizona. I was collecting comics and I got turned on to Strangers in Paradise. And as I mentioned last night, it is the only comic book that has reduced me to tears, and it did it more than once in its run. So I was collecting comics, but I was collecting more to read as opposed to investments. So I didn't really buy like back issues unless it was something that was like Vertigo, the Vertigo line or something where I was like, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. I want to pick up, back issues. So anyway, I knew a few women who I was friends with, and they knew that I would go on Wednesdays to the comic shop. And they were like, yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand, people getting into comics. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to share my all-time favorite comic book with you. You check out one trade paperback and you tell me if you like it or not. So it was Strangers in Paradise. It is actually what you're seeing right now. I Dream of You, which won an Eisner Award. Each of the three got a chance to read that because that's kind of really the start of Strangers in Paradise, even though there's a trade paperback before it. All three of them got hooked. One of them, when I gave her the book, later on that night, she gave me a call and asked me if I would come over and drop off some of the other trade paperbacks I had. So I actually it got to the point, Strangers in Paradise was still running. I would pick up the new issue of Strangers in Paradise. I would get to read it. Then I would hand it off to someone. They read it, gave it back to me. I'd hand it off to somebody else. So that one issue of Strangers in Paradise got read by 4 people. I absolutely love that comic book. And I love Terry Moore's art. Terry Moore's art is excellent. So you don't hear me talk about comic books, but definitely take a peek. $20. Can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with $20. All right. So now let's talk about some role-playing games, because now available in print and PDF for Delta Green from Arc Dream Publishing is God's Law. Here's the latest. A tradition of service. A shockingly, unnaturally gruesome death brings your agents to Los Angeles. Their investigation quickly brings them into contact with the massive Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, long recognized by federal agencies and civilian whistleblowers as one of the most corrupt institutions in the country. All right, they're saying that, not me. One of the many criminal gangs that work as deputies has a particular interest in the agent's pursuits, a gang that met the unnatural and began twisting older, deeper laws toward the tired avarice of police corruption. They expected the usual complicity at every level of government. Instead, they find Delta Green. The question for the agents is not whether they face the rot of the unnatural, it's how far the rot spreads and how deadly the response will be when they start burning it out. God's Law is playable with Delta Green, the role-playing game, available from our friends over at Arc Dream Publishing. Optionally, this also makes a perfect companion to the acclaimed campaign Delta Green, God's Teeth, which I have talked about in the past. I would not give it a review score because it's something that I would not run at my table, but it is impressive. It just delves into some topics that I just don't want to game or have anything to do with at my game table. Anywho, this is God's Law, not God's Teeth. This 56-page softcover with PDF can be had over at Drive-Thru RPG for an MSRP of $24.99. You can grab just the PDF alone for $9.99. Ooh, scary kids, scary. Zoraxaran1 says, love Delta Green. Flaming Huron's with us tonight. Good to see you. Have not seen Flaming Huron in a bit. Pete Strachwitz says, Strangers in Paradise, I dream of you. I'll check it out. Like I said, if I get one person turned on to Strangers in Paradise or any of Terry Moore's other series, then I will rest with a big smile on my face. Moon right along. Hit Point Press is now offering the Humblewood 5e and 5e 2024 setting in PDF as a pay what you want. Yes, here's a lowdown. Humblewood is a campaign setting for 5e that includes 10 new player races, new monsters, compelling adventure, and more. The Humblewood campaign book digital PDF contains over 200 pages of adventure, setting details, playable races, and a bestiary, as well as printable accessories and resources. This even includes a free PDF with player character updates for 5e Plus, as they're referring to it. You'll find a full adventure from level 1 to 5, those aforementioned 10 new playable races, new backgrounds, feats, and spells, printable location and battle maps, printable standees, and printable reference cards. And once again, let me point out, just pay what you want. So it defaults to $29.99 for the PDF. You can change that to nothing if you want. That's how pay what you want works. You pay what you want, get that. There you go. Gleeman RX says they'd like to hear what Strangers in Paradise is about. They'll pick up the bundle anyways. They know not to pass up a bundle when Jeff makes such a strong recommendation. Well, I will point out that you may not like Strangers in Paradise if you have qualms about two women in love. Should point that out. But it's a love story, basically. But it's got action, it's got comedy, it is definitely its own thing. I will tell you that. I will tell you that much. Fleming Huron says, damn, instant pass now. Yeah, it's up to you. All right. Hey, let's talk about another bundle, though, because Shannon Appelcline's Designers and Dragons series is the focus of a new bundle of holding. I've got the deets on the deal. Adventura. For the third time, Bundle of Holding is resurrected the January 2015 Designers, Dragons, and More bundle, a fine collection of PDFs that chronicle the history and highlights of the tabletop role-playing game hobby. History is important to role players, whether you're new to RPGs and looking for recommendations, or a grown-yard feeling nostalgic. You'll enjoy this revived collection about our greatest games and their origins. For just $7.95, you'll get all three titles in this revived offers starter collection, which has a retail value of $35, as DRM-free PDFs. And you'll get Designers and Dragons, the 70s, those swinging 70s. The first volume in Shannon Appelcline's History of RPG Publishers, now supported by the Designers and Dragons Patreon campaign. This debut installment covers Dungeons and Dragons, the turbulent history of TSR, and the first generation of role-playing games, with a foreword by the late great Greg Stafford. There's Family Games, the 100 Best. 100 famed designers review and discuss their favorite games. Blocus, Can't Stop, Gloom, Kill Dr. Lucky, Prince Valiant, and dozens more. That book's relatively old, just so you know. I mean, it's more than a decade old, if I remember right. There's also 40 Years of Gen Con, a photo-filled anecdotal reminiscence compiled by Robin D. Laws, one of the hobby's leading... Okay, that sentence is not constructed correctly. So the book itself is a photo-filled anecdotal reminiscence of the hobby's leading U.S. convention, compiled by Robin D. Laws. It's the best 4 decades in gaming. And if you pay more than the threshold price of $18.62, you'll level up and also get this revival's entire bonus collection with 4 more titles worth an additional $40. Hobby games, the 100 Best, from Amber Diceless Role-Playing to Wiz War. I don't even think it's still in print. 100 leading designers praise their favorites. Once again, this is fairly old. But back to the highlights. There's Designers and Dragons, the 80s, GURPS, West End, Palladium, Champions, and much more. Forward by cyberpunk designer Mike Pondsmith. Then we've got Designers and Dragons, the 90s, World of Darkness, Wizards of the Coast, Warhammer 40K, Atlas Games, and more. Forward by Peter Atkinson, founder of Wizards and owner of Gen Con. And then we've got Designers and Dragons, the Aughts, D20, Pathfinder, the Indies, and more. Forward by Paizo Publishing founder Lisa Stevens. These savings will run through January 29th. Agile Monk is with us in chat, and they point out they have read all the Designers and Dragons books. So have I. And I enjoyed them tremendously, except, and I can't remember what the phrase is, for some strange reason, Shannon Appelcline, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his last name, my apologies, gets into this habit of using this one phrase constantly. And it's sort of like, it's like you'll see it, and it's like, okay, I just saw that same phrase 2 pages ago. Oh, there it is again. It's like, oh my God, man. But the books themselves are really good. Very, very well researched. And from the 70s to the aughts, every volume is entertaining. And you will learn a tremendous amount about our hobby and the people in it, and some of the challenges that these companies faced and these individual designers faced. So Agile Monk says, yes, you're right about the repeated phrases. And I should point out, Shannon Appelcline is a man, not a woman. So I know Agile Monk said, yeah, you're right about her, the repeated phrases. Yeah, it's a he. Shannon is a man. It's a man, man. Cold War Tuesday is joining us once again. Good to see you. Welcome back. All right, on to our, Kevin R. Smith said, yes, Shannon is a man. It surprised them too. Yeah, I'm with you. I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay. It's a guy. All right. Final news piece of the evening. Free League Publishing has released a free quick start for the Dragonbane role-playing game. And I've got the skinny on the Sinking Tower. This free quick start PDF of the award-winning fantasy RPG Dragonbane includes condensed rules, pre-generated characters, and the tournament-style adventure, The Sinking Tower. The adventure offers difficult challenges for even the bravest and most skilled adventurers. The players will need to work together to solve puzzles, win battles, and find valuable treasure, all in just 2 hours. Dragonbane is a classic fantasy tabletop role-playing game full of magic, mystery, and adventure. What about the mayhem? That's how they normally advertise it, right? Mayhem? They're mentioning the mayhem. It's designed from the ground up to facilitate fast and furious play with very little prep time and adventures that are a breeze to run. Dragonbane is a game with room for laughs at the table while still offering brutal challenges for the adventurers. Dragonbane is a translation of Drakar Okdimaran. Nowhere close on that pronunciation, I'm sure. Scandinavia's first and biggest tabletop role-playing game, which originally launched in 1982. This new and reimagined edition has one foot firmly planted in the heritage of decades of Swedish gaming, and the other in the modern and innovative game design for which Free League Publishing is known worldwide. All rules, equipment, and information needed to run your campaign are included, along with macros and rollable tables to aid character and story generation. This 60-page quick start PDF is available absolutely free over at DriveThruRPG. Sharon says the mirth and mayhem come when the players realize they are sinking. Kevin King asks, is this the Darkwing Duck role-playing game? Well, yes, ducks are a player race. Yes. Reading Aid is popping on in, asking, was this one of your favorite role-playing games of the past year? It was not. Was it this past year? See, I swear, do this for so long, and it's like, when did that come out? Yes, it was. It was in my video. For some reason, I was thinking maybe it was the year before. Because the reality is, I think the PDF actually came out in late 2023. The physical box set, I think, came out, if I remember correctly, early in 2024. But yes, Dragonbane is really cool. I have a review. Check out the review video. Really, really dug it. And I think you will too. And I will say that I could see you using Dragonbane to run old D&D modules. Take a little bit of work, not a ton, but a little bit for you to convert that over. Although, strangely enough, they mention how this doesn't require a lot of prep. I don't know, baby. I reviewed Path of Glory, the adventure campaign. You're not just going to crack that book open and run it. But hey, 60-page PDF, absolutely free. I think this isn't a bad deal. Mm-hmm. Sean Doll says they think the print version of this might have been the free role-playing game day offering. That is a possibility. That is. Flaming Huron says they do use Dragonbane to run their old D&D adventures. There you go. Very nice. Agile Monk said, Jeff, I thought Dragonbane was your favorite 2023. It might be, like I said. You know what I think I had as one of my favorites for 2024 was actually Path of Glory. Right here, right behind me. That's why I was thinking, was it this past year? It was Path of Glory that was on my favorites video. Kevin R. Smith said they played in a con game last October where the GM converted the first ever Pathfinder 1E module to Dragonbane. Would that have been the Sand? What is it? Sand? It's not Sandhurst. Sandpoint. Isn't that it? Agile Monk says, yes, it was Path of Glory. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for telling me when I shared stuff and reviewed things. Hey, yeah. So I was sitting there going, oh, yeah, I remember I saw this video with Bob Euchre and Bob Costas. And it's got 4 years ago or something. And then as I thought about it, I was like, no, I think it was maybe about a year ago. Fleming Aaron says they hope more third-party publishers use Dragonbane. There have been some third-party adventures popping up. I know that. Kevin R. Smith says, no, the adventure was the one with the Everflame. That I am not familiar with. Although I point this out all the time. I did not know much about the first edition of Pathfinder. So I really wasn't on board with Paizo at all. And to be honest, I don't think Paizo was all that big on sending out review copies of stuff either back then. Didn't know. So that's it for the news tonight. Of course, I've mentioned Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And those commissions go a long, long, long way to keeping thegaminggang.com around. Of course, if you like this video, and don't forget, appease the YouTube algorithm gods by leaving a comment on the video. But if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Mouse Lita! I mean, that's good. And this month, Agile Monk, Kevin King, and the Madman have all made not small donations. So big thank you to all of you out there who use the banner ads and or visit paypal.me, the Gaming Gang. It is much appreciated. So we are going to dive on into Let's Build a Fantasy Role-Playing Game tonight. In just a few moments, we're going to discuss combat, because I've got some ideas of how combat is going to work in this game. And I want combat to be fast and deadly. And I got some ideas. So we will talk about that. Gleeman RX asks if I have any interest in running castles and crusades with some of the gang on Foundry. No, I have none. I'm joking. I'm joking. So Pete Stracklet said the reforged copies just arrived. I just talked with Grace over at Troll Lord Games. And once again, it was like radio silence from them before. So last time I had heard from them was early October before Gamehole Con, and then nothing. Hadn't heard anything. And I was like, what the hell's going on? How come I'm not getting any emails telling me, hey, this is coming out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw another outlet had news about World of Gary Gygax, The Hermit. And I'm like, get ready. Here it comes. Here comes the F-bomb. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, all the reviews I've done for Troll Lord Games, all the interviews, I think out of the almost 15 years I've been doing this, Troll Lord Games is up there with the number of interviews I've done out of everybody. I think the only one, well, I know for sure one company that would beat them out would be Cubicle 7. So anyway, so I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, other outlets are getting, sell sheet info or press releases or what have you, and I'm not. And I mean, I know there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes. So you understand, I am as transparent as I possibly can with publishers and viewers and readers and so forth. So anyway, so I reached out because this kind of happened before where it was like, I wasn't hearing anything. So I reached out and Grace got back to me the next day, and hopefully we're going to get kind of back on track again. So maybe we're going to be able to dive on into those reforged volumes because I know a lot of people are asking about them. They're really curious. Death Angel's Shadow is with us. Been a while since we've seen DS. Welcome back. Agile Monk says, I'm sure it's just a mistake. Oh, yeah, it was explained what's going on. So, according to Grace, they don't send out press releases, which I think is really odd. But, I like the people at Troll Lord Games. They've all been super cool to me. But, and this is, there are a lot of RPG publishers out there, RPG creators out there who I don't think have a great grasp on how they could make more money or like get the word out more about their releases and stuff. So anyway, but yeah, so the fact that they don't really have a press really like, email blasts that go out, which is weird because I swear I'd gotten emails before. But I guess they're doing a newsletter for retailers. So Grace is going to put me on that so I can. So, I happen to be one of these people that I don't like being taken for granted. That is, since I was a small child, one of my biggest pet peeves is for someone to take me for granted for anything. This is, women I've dated, stuff like that. It's like, you start taking me for granted, I'm going to start checking out. So Agile Monk points out, which I mentioned this yesterday, the programs for schools that they'll send out copies of Castles and Crusades. They'll send out a package, a bundle of stuff. So to schools, to their game clubs. So Dave S says, I get promotional emails from Troll Lords. Yeah, but you got to realize that they probably don't have me on a mailing list as a customer. So Ziggy 7800 Pro is with us. So they're going to play in Castles and Crusades sometime. Maybe when their Castle Keeper decides to. They're playing a Hyperborea game right now. Very nice. Very nice. So a lot of folks in chat are talking about how their Reforged volumes are on the way. So one of the things I had mentioned to Grace was that people who watch this stream, people who visit the Gaming Gang, stuff like that, you watch my review videos. No, I'm a huge proponent of Troll Lord Games, and I'm always sharing coverage and things like that about Troll Lord Games. So it doesn't look good for me when people in chat know more about what's on the horizon from Troll Lord Games than I have, right? So Love Fist is with us in chat as well. Looks like we've got a nice chat rocking and rolling tonight. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Something else I wanted to jump into real quickly, because I have had some emails, people asking me what I thought of Diamond Distributor filing bankruptcy, filing Chapter 11, not 14, or Chapter, 7? Or is it 14? The one that really is like, oh, shit. Chapter 11 is just restructuring. So anyways, so they were kind of curious what I thought, because Diamond has sold Alliance Game Distribution. So they're kind of curious, what did I think of that? And the reality is, I don't think it's that big a deal. Diamond filing bankruptcy, that is a big deal. It's a bigger deal for small comic publishers. As far as like Marvel, DC, Image, even like Dark Horse, Boom Studios, the companies that we share comic book news about, they don't have much to worry about. Like, for one, Marvel and DC have their own deals. So they were just being distributed through Diamond, like as a backup, because I guess they saw the writing on the wall not too long ago. It was kind of like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be paying Diamond when they could do it essentially themselves. Like Marvel is through Penguin Books. So Cleveland RX says their Castles and Crusades Reforged was damaged by the post office. Troll Lord Games shipped out replacements so quickly. They're now on the top of their list among publishers. Hope they reforged their relationship with Jeff. We don't have a bad relationship. I was just reaching out saying, hey, what's going on? I never hear from you guys. It's like, what's up? So, anywho, Matthew Blackwell's popping on in. Good to see you. I guess they're swinging on by to see what we're talking about. So, yeah, the sale of the Alliance, I don't think that's a big deal. Diamond itself, and the reality is, part of this has to do with tariffs. Diamond figured we better do it now, not later. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So tonight we're going to continue my Let's Build a Fantasy Role-Playing Game series. We're going to talk about combat. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Baseball Joe was a slugger, you know. He made all the pitchers cry. He was frank to admit the reason he hit was T-O-D-D-Y. Toddy.
That's the drink for me.
Toddy.
Try it, Pop, and see.
Toddy. Man, oh man, that's the brand new chocolate malt in a can.
Yes, sirree. Try Toddy and you'll agree. Toddy is as delicious as the finest tasting soda fountain malted you ever had. Ice cold or steaming hot. Ask for Toddy.
Delicious.
On sale now at our snack bar.
Schmitz, one beautiful beer. Schmitz is a dry beer, a mellow beer, a hearty beer, blended into one beer, a light, bright, fun beer. Schmitz, one beautiful beer. Is a dry beer, a mellow beer, a hearty beer, blended into one beer, a light, bright, fun beer. Schmitz, one beautiful beer.
Schmitz of Philadelphia, one beautiful beer.
One truckload Wilkins regular coffee? Check.
What was that?
Wilkins instant coffee? Check.
We can't tell you what that's gonna be, but if you wanna see, you better stick around.
They're slugging it out in the middle of the ring. And there's a hard right to the chop. And Blue Bomber's block is knocked off. His block is knocked off?
Sure, but you can press it right back on again. It's just part of the action with the world's only boxing robots, the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx. Takes 2 managers to handle the fighters and lots of skill to win. With these control levers, you can keep your fighters in motion to duck punches. When you press this plunger, he throws a right uppercut. Press the other plunger and there's a left jab. Lots of exciting action and fun for everyone when the world's only boxing robots battle it out.
The Blue Bomber's looking for an opening. And there it is. That's the end of round 2.
Just push the flying head back and you're ready for round 3.
Boy, this is the greatest.
You bet. The world's only boxing robots. Get the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx.
That was just the beginning of the Robot Wars. I had Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And the thing is, if they got broken, or the head wouldn't stay back down, because it would be like, meh, pop up. And I was like, great. It's like, push it down, bang, push it down, bang. Damn it. All righty then. So Agile Monk says, of course, obviously, those tariffs aren't in place yet. I mean, there are some tariffs, but the tariffs have been around, not new. I think it's some people seeing the writing on the wall, and Diamond was in some trouble anyway. Funny enough, and we'll finish this topic because I don't want to go off on a big long tangent about this. The popularity of like comic book movies does not coincide with the popularity of comic books. So nowadays, a big selling comic, and I don't mean like once in a while where it's like, oh, wow, that comic sold like 300,000 copies. Talking on a monthly basis. Usually on a monthly basis, your number one seller sells about 100,000, 125,000. That's your number one issue of all the publishers out there in a month. And of course, you go back not even 20 years and it'd be 3 or 4 times that. In fact, I think at the height, now this we're talking the 40s, I think the height of Superman's popularity, I think they were selling like 8 million issues a month of the main Superman comic. And then back then, that comic passed from one kid to another kid to another kid to another kid. Because even when I was a younger kid and we would have our like 50-cent allowance or dollar allowance a week, and we go run down to our little corner store, we called it, and buy comics for like a quarter, we would trade with some of our friends. So not even going that far back. But I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, as far as gaming goes, the sale of Alliance, I don't think has really any impact. Other things will be having impacts. I just don't think that will. All right. So let's build a fantasy role-playing game. So if you have been following this series on most Thursday nights, we're putting together kind of an old school flavored. So it's not really old like an OSR game, because we're not just using old D&D or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or BX as our, skeletal system to build on. We're kind of playing around with that. But the premise that we've got is we're going to have our 6 standard attributes. We're going to have our 3 to 18 range. Although starting characters are, I think we're going to limit them to like 15. So the thing is, for action resolution, we're not rolling a 20-sided die looking to roll high. We're looking to roll less than that attribute. So Andy Sykes is popping on in, mentioning it's been quite a while since they were in chat. Well, welcome back. Glad you had an opportunity to join us once again. So we're going to have like critical success on a 1, critical failure on a 20. And one of the reasons why I like the rolling under your attribute is it makes every point of that attribute important, as opposed to most of the systems that that utilize the 3 to 18. It's usually just bonuses. So a 9 to 12, 9 to 11 is nothing. It's, there's no difference mechanically between a 9 and 11. Whereas if you're rolling under, then yes, there is a big deal. And I don't want it to be equal to or less than the attribute, because I want not more failure, but I want more challenges for the players, because not succeeding on a roll that you're attempting to do something doesn't mean that it's automatically a failure. It could be a success, but now there's an additional challenge. So that's something that we kind of want to look at. Fleming Heron says, I do like games where your stats actually matter. Yep. So we talked a little bit about our action resolution. We're going to have advantage and disadvantage, but the advantage and disadvantage is not rolling another 20-sided die. It's going to be rolling a 4-sided die. And if you have advantage, then the total of that 4-sided die is subtracted from the number on your 20-sided die. And if you have disadvantage, it's the opposite. You're going to add that to your roll. And then we'll actually have steps of advantage and disadvantage. So you could have a D6 advantage or disadvantage. You could have a D8 or a D10, which would be a big deal. Advantage of any sort cancels out disadvantage of any sort and vice versa. So it's not as if you're going to have these additional dice rolled with your 20-sided die constantly. So it'd be like in a situation where it's like, oh, well, I've got advantage for this. Yeah, but then you have disadvantage because of this. It's like, okay, well, you're just rolling a 20-sided die, roll less than. So I want to keep as much math out of this as I possibly can. I know people complain about it having too much math in role-playing games. All right, so let's talk about combat. So as I had mentioned previously, armor, we do not have armor class. And we are not going to have armor determine how difficult it is to hit somebody, which is not really how it works in like D&D. It's just what people think it is. Ziggy 7800 Pro says, yes, please keep math at a minimum. That is a plus. Yeah, I would say so. Because sadly, strangely enough, I don't know. There's a lot of folks out there just can't do math. And the way they're teaching math in schools these days, and for like the past, 15 years, I guess, we're not producing a lot of math whizzes out there. So Lovefist says you could use Zaki dice. I don't want to use Zaki dice. Reason for it is I don't want to throw that on top of people. One of the reasons why people don't want to play Dungeon Crawl Classics is because of the Zaki dice. As stupid as that is, I have had people tell me, no, they are not going to try Dungeon Crawl Classics because you got to have those extra dice. And I'm like, yeah, but there's apps and stuff for that. And they're like, no, I don't want apps on my phone. I want to roll dice. I'm like, okay, I get it. All right, don't hit me. James Eck is with us, as is Raven. Don't worry, Raven. We actually haven't gotten into our combat yet. But yes, you are actually on the correct path there. We are going to do opposed rolls. Because as I had mentioned, I want combat to be fast-moving. I want combat to be deadly. I don't want it to be like, save versus death. Shit. All right, you want to give me another character sheet, please? I'll roll up a new one real fast. So Kevin R. Smith also says, yeah, I can see why requiring extra dice that are harder to find than standard dice might turn some people off. Yeah, because you can swing into just about any game store. And it even a game store that doesn't really carry a lot of role-playing game stuff, they will have gaming dice. Cold War Tuesday says, tactile does matter, but that sounds like empty excuses to at least dabble. I get it. I know. Love His says they've got so many sets of them, but they run Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics. I have 2 sets. Yeah, I've got 2. And Elliot's got a set too. So because I was going to run, I started running Dungeon Crawl Classics. I ran Sailors on the Sea of Fate. Now, sorry, Sailors on the Sunless Sea. Sailors on the Seas of Fate is Elric of Melnib. I almost said Melnibone. Melnibone. My God, it's all just becoming one big thing. All the games are the same. All the books I've read, it's all jumbled up now. So anyway, yes, Lumpus said, not the Elric book. No. Sailors on the Starless Sea is what I ran. And they had fun. They had a good time. Anywho. So as far as combat goes, I don't want 30-minute combats. And I know there are people out there who play role-playing games who, if you just threw wave after wave of enemies at them, they're in heaven. They don't need any sort of adventure or story or narrative or anything. It's rolling dice, killing stuff. Yay, that's fun. Okay, well, that's great. If they enjoy that, fine. That's not what I enjoy, nor my players. So, yes, and Kevin R. Smith says, yeah, to be fair, Goodman Games does list ways of simulating Zaki dice with combos of standard gaming dice. Yes, that is true. That is true. Tessie Trekkie says they've got one hard and fast rule about phones at my table. I have rules about that too. Silent vibrate, face down on the table, not to be touched except it breaks. My players have lives, but our game time is limited and sacred. I agree with you on that. As a game master, one of the biggest clues to finding out if your players are enjoying themselves or not is how often you see them glancing towards their phones or reaching for their phones. So yeah, same thing. Thankfully, most of my gang, it's not as if that, they have to be reached by phone. So they can just have it on vibrate and stuff like that. So what we're going to do as far as combat is we are going to have opposed roles. So as I had mentioned in a previous episode, we are not going to have like high amounts of hit points for monsters and characters, NPCs, and so forth. So like a dragon, like an adult, like even like an ancient dragon, right? You're looking at probably 50 hit points. And it's really not going to be hit points. It's more just health. And your standard player character is probably going to have somewhere between 10 and 14. So a little bit like basic role-playing, Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, so on, where you don't have loads and loads of hit points, because I don't want the characters and NPCs and monsters to just be bags of hit points, because it's not the hit points. It's not the number of hits it takes to defeat an opponent or a creature that makes role-playing games interesting. It's what those opponents do. What do they do differently than other monsters? That's what makes them unique. That's what makes it fun. So what we're looking at here is that it'll be opposed roles. So it's not just a 6-second combat round. We're talking probably fairly abstract, but it's probably about 10, 15 seconds. So it's not just one blow, it's a flurry of blows. So that die roll doesn't represent just one attack. The die roll represents if you were able to injure your target through your attack. So knowing that the creatures and player characters and that aren't going to have tons of hit points, like say like a kobold, which traditionally is a pretty weak little creature, that really kobolds, we're facing off against a kobold. Oh no, run everybody. Those kind of creatures are dangerous in large numbers, right? So they're going to have like 2 or 3 hits. That's it. So as far as the opposed rolls, what I would personally like to do would be if you miss your roll, you miss. Not, nothing, right? So nothing happens to the attacker, nothing's going to happen to the defender unless 20 was rolled, because that's a critical failure. So remember, high is bad as far as that 20-sided die. So if both the attacker and defender miss, nothing. If the attacker succeeds and the defender fails, then the attacker gets to roll their damage dice. And as far as the damage that weapons are going to do is going to be like one-handed weapons. It's going to be like 1d4. So that 1d4 is used for standard advantage, disadvantage. It's also going to be kind of our default as far as damage. And armor will absorb damage. And armor is not going to absorb a ton of damage. So leather armor, that sort of, hide armor, stuff like that, padded armor, it's going to absorb one point of damage. A chain shirt, something like that, will absorb 2 points of damage. Plate mail would absorb 3 points. So keeping in mind that you're rolling a 4-sided die, just a standard, one-handed weapon, the max you're going to do is 4 points of damage to someone who's unarmored or has no sort of defensive capability to it, to absorb damage. So like a dragon, using that example, probably would have an armor of 6. So yeah, okay, so it's got the 50 hits, but damn, it's going to be pretty tough to get past that, that amount of damage absorption. But here's the thing. So Pete Strakulich asked, what about exploding dice? We could do exploding dice if you roll the highest. I could see doing that. Or I could see a 1 is a critical hit. It ignores armor. But the thing is, if you have advantage, remember, because advantage is going to deduct from your D20 roll. If the advantage lowers your number to a 1, it's a critical hit. So rather than just having, say, a 5% chance of a critical hit, if you have advantage, if you get a 1 on your D4 and you rolled a 2, that 2 becomes a 1. Now it's a critical hit. You roll your damage, and then that is going to ignore armor completely. The lucky shot. So, Flaming Heron says either double damage or dice to roll for crits. I like the concept of ignoring the armor. And it's like okay, so, we were able to find the chink in Smaug's armor, right? Right, the little spot that's missing the scale. That's like a critical hit. So as far as just the resolving the attack, if both the attacker and defender both succeed, then the attacker ends up doing 1 point of damage. Doesn't matter what the armor is. The defender also does 1 point of damage to the attacker. And then if the attacker fails and the defender is successful, then you resolve the combat just as if that defender were the attacker. I like that simply because it speeds up combat, and it's you're not going to sit there and be like, okay, so Bob attacks, then Joe, then Mary. Okay, then we've got the 5 kobolds, and then Jimmy over there. No, all you're doing is you're gonna kind of double up what's going on in the combat round because, oh, so Jimmy gets to attack. Oh, okay, Jimmy did damage. Oh, Jimmy also took a point of damage. Uh-oh. Combat's deadly. So I had also thought that what we could do is if the attacker and defender are both successful, whoever's got the lowest die roll rolls their full damage. So that also, defenders can be trouble, right? So it's not just, oh, I attack and then my target doesn't get to do anything. But the funny thing is, I had thought originally, I was like, well, whoever is the lowest compared to their attribute. So, of course, melee combat is strength. And we were bouncing around the idea of wisdom actually being ranged combat, not dexterity. So I had thought, well, for one, ranged combat, you don't have to worry about the defender rolling because it's like, what are you going to throw that arrow back at me? What? How are you going to pull the arrow out and then shoot it back at me with your bow? Okay. So as far as combat goes, I like the idea of the opposed roles. So it's something that Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay does. There are some other role-playing games out there that do that also. But the thing is, I know there was, it took me a second to get back on track with what I was thinking. As far as the damage and to hit. So remember we were talking about as far as skills. This was a few episodes ago. We talked about skills, and there are no levels in this game. So you'll earn experience points. Experience points can be used to purchase the opportunity to raise your attributes or to gain skills, gain abilities. And for example, like if you wanted to be like a fighter, well, one of the skills you're going to have to purchase is martial skills. So if you don't have martial skills, in melee combat, you have a D4 disadvantage. If you have that martial skill, you just roll your regular 20-sided die. But then, of course, we can also kind of start to kind of zero in on certain things. So maybe one of the skills is one-handed weapons or swords, axes, pole arms, whatever. But once you have the martial skill, then you would purchase axes, pole arms, whatever. And for every level you have of that, you can either use that as an advantage to your attack. So let's say as an example, kind of an experienced character, they have swordsman, whatever, right? We're just saying swords. Ziggy 7800 Pro says trident. I think we would toss trident into pole arms. I think that's what that would be. Funny enough, I usually pick the trident as the spiritual weapon in Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know why. So anyway, so let's say they have a level 2 in swords. So that gives them the opportunity to either use the advantage. So you could say, okay, so I'm going to use 1 point towards my advantage with my die roll and 1 point towards my damage. So you would roll, and you roll your 20-sided die. And if you said, okay, well, I want 1 for advantage and 1 for damage, you would roll your 4-sided die as your advantage to deduct from that 20-sided die. And then if you were rolling for damage, you would boost the die. So I know there was mention of like exploding dice. This is kind of in line with that, but it's also in line with the more experienced adventurer, the better adventurer, the more powerful adventurer is going to do more damage. So it's the concept of improving your character, advancing your character without levels. So you would be rolling, say if you had swords and it's a one-handed sword, say it's a short sword or something like that, rather than rolling a D4, you'd roll a D6. Or if you wanted to say, okay, I'm going to use both of my points towards advantage, well, then you roll a D6 for your advantage, not the D4. Or if you wanted to take the 2 points and put them towards damage, you could do that, and then you'd be rolling a D8. So there would be ways for experienced characters to take on more powerful monsters and not just sit there being like plinking them for a point here, point there. So there is some discussion of a Harn. I think it's a Harn convention. That's Harn Fests. I didn't realize that there were Harn conventions. It's funny because I just shared a Kickstarter preview, which I actually did provide a review score for Quebec 1759 for Columbia Games. And Grant Dalglish reached out and was like, oh, thanks, man. Oh, Hamfest. Oh, see, it looked like Harn. For ham radios. Gotcha. Because I was like, wow, they have Harn conventions? That's pretty weird. I mean, Harn is cool. It's, we probably talk about it more than any other, role-playing related channel out there. Probably a lot more than many of them. So anyway, so that is essentially what I'm thinking as far as combat. But what I'd like to do too is I would like to make the combat more narrative. Because nothing is more boring than just, oh, okay, I got a 13. Does that hit? Yep. Yeah, that's a hit. Roll your damage. Okay. 3. All right. And then, as the game master, you try to come up with some sort of, oh, okay, so So let's paint a little visual picture as opposed to, okay, you did 3 points damage. Be like, yeah, that's exciting. But also trying to get your players to narrate what's going on isn't the easiest either. Because sometimes they just start saying the same thing over, and it's like, yeah, okay. You leap up in the air and you bring down your axe. I get it. So you could conceivably offer your players advantage on their attacks if they, give you a good like visualization of what's going on. It just like as an example, if you're familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics, the fighters have mighty deeds. Well, there isn't really a list of, well, these are the mighty deeds that they can do. No, it's essentially up to the player and the game master to come up with cool, weird stuff that the fighter can take advantage of their surroundings, take advantage of their environment. And those are basically the like beginning steps of a mighty deed. So kind of like Flaming Heron points out, points for good narrative gameplay, right? That the more exciting you make the game, the more exciting the game will become, because then, I took that kobold's head off with just one swing of my axe. As opposed to, okay, 4 points damage. The kobold keels over dead. So just some thoughts as far as that goes. And then you figure the concept of the game is still going to be where this is more of an epic fantasy role-playing game than a low magic sort of role-playing game. We're not really like aiming for like a sword and sorcery sort of vibe. We're kind of aiming at just some core mechanics that people could use, and they could plug in whatever setting they personally want. But I would still, aim at this being a high fantasy, high magic sort of setting here. So there you go. So those are some thoughts about the combat itself, where armor absorbs damage, a shield absorbs damage. But I really don't want the damage absorption for like a humanoid character just dressed in armor to go higher than maybe 4. And then I would also think that like plate mail, full plate, and a shield, let's say that's giving you the 4, right? But it also gives you disadvantage on a lot of stuff, including combat. Because watch it, if any of those old movies, maybe not even that old, where they're showing, characters in full plate armor fighting, it sure as shit wasn't easy. So there you go. Flaming Heron says it gives players agency to take risks if they know they could possibly get benefits for it. Yes. Because once again, I also am looking to create something that it's super easy for you to port over old D&D adventures, any really sort of role-playing game adventure. So if you wanted to port over like a RuneQuest adventure, or if you wanted to utilize a Pathfinder adventure, that it wouldn't be overly difficult for you to convert from one to the other. So as an example, like hit dice. So if we took, and we'll have an episode about monsters. Maybe we'll do that next week. If you took a hit die from, let's say, basic, expert, and AD&D, I think they are pretty similar. I think they're both six-sided dice. I might be wrong. It's been quite a while, but I would say that a hit die should represent 4 hits at most. So if you had a 3 hit die creature, yeah, you're probably looking at about 10 hits. And then you look at, okay, so their armor class is this. Oh, because it's a giant turtle. Oh, okay, so it's got that shell. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance, man, that's a cool game. That was also a freebie this past Epic Games giveaway period for the holidays. I already had it from the previous year when they gave it away. But yeah, when I saw that, I called Elliot right away and I'm like, dude, you've got to grab the game that's free on Epic today. Do not miss out. Do not forget about it once you get off this phone. I'm like, it's excellent. Keithulu and James X say it's 8-sided by default. Is it OD&D where it's a 6? I think it might be. Well, regardless, I would still say a hit die is probably worth 4 points. And then, you can fudge a little bit, right? Oh, okay, so that's the Hobgoblin Sergeant. Aha, well, we're going to give him an extra hit or 2. Death Angel Shadow says, no hams were harmed at the Ham Fest, yet no one was playing Harn World, sadly, at the Ham Fest. All righty. Flaming Heron says, need to get it before the new Kingdom Come Deliverance game comes out. I know that's slated for this year, I thought, but James X says, yes, OD&D is 6. I remember one of them being a 6-sided die. Keith Lucas says, the only way you'll know you've lost a toe is the burning sensation in your foot as you're bleeding out. Oh, why is it so cold? All righty. So there you go. It's just some things to kick around. As far as combat goes, like I said, I would want to make it pretty narrative. So I know some people don't dig like range bands, but I would probably look at that, right? So you would have contact. So hand-to-hand combat. Then you could have close, near, far, very far. So I don't want to be sitting here like, okay, well, this bow is this many feet. Okay, that crossbow, this kind of crossbow can fire this many feet. I want to kind of try to keep it abstract because when we start talking about gear and stuff, I'm essentially lifting stuff I'm cribbing stuff from the Black Hack because I like the whole, oh, well, you've got a D6 of rations and you're eating your rations. Okay, roll that die. Oh, you got a 1? I think it's, if I remember right, it's 1 or 2. Roll 1 or 2, it drops down to the next size die. I like that as opposed to sitting there like, okay, all right. It's like arrows and stuff like that. Sling stones. I don't want to be tracking all that stuff. No way. So, and I did do that with, actually I was doing that with Dungeon Crawl Classics. And the gang liked it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I mean, they understood. It's like, oh, crap, I'm down to a 4-sided die. Better look for more. Be like, yeah, okay. All righty. Last thing I want to mention is my friends over at Chaosium Inc. sent along a copy of RuneQuest Classic. And it's a hardcover. I thought this was a soft cover, but no, it is a hardcover. So this is actually the RuneQuest that I originally picked up. This is RuneQuest 2nd edition. And I'm going to take a peek at this because I am planning on sharing a video that is going to discuss the differences between 2nd edition or classic RuneQuest and RuneQuest role-playing in Glorantha, because there are a lot of people out there who would probably dig classic RuneQuest that maybe RuneQuest role-playing in Glorantha is just a little too much depth that they don't want to have to deal with. So because there are quite a lot of additions in that. So sweet. So we're going to be diving on into this relatively soon. All right. So that's it for this time out. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company with your harm cons, your ham radio speak. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have opportunities to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the over 2,100 videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Then, of course, when you're not watching videos on the channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you have an opportunity, please comment on the video so you can appease the YouTube algorithm gods. Maybe they'll show this video to people who aren't familiar with the channel. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And when you do, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. For a second, I thought maybe it was upside down. Tribes and Tribulations for my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday for another edition of Cthulhu's Day, although I don't know what adventure we're going to talk about yet. But we will take a deep dive into a Call of Cthulhu adventure, which I have run. Keep that in mind. Yes. So thank you kindly for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.